if you are going to increase taxes, the distribution of who it has to go to has to be discussed. Like, who's it going to, who can bleed the most, basically. Because I think if you try to tax the poor, you're, bleeding a stone. If you tax the middle class, they're very reliable voters, and I think they've been inculcated over decades of Cold War conditioning to think about taxes a certain way and services, and they've taken for granted. And of course, if you go after the rich, then they have a lot more means to, I guess, assert their interests in the political process. How do we navigate that particular difficulty? That's a real whopper.
Well, right now there's huge public support for taxing the rich. And the public, the many, outnumber the rich. So I think the starting point, it's not the end point, but there is room to tax the rich. And that grew incredibly with things like the Panama Papers, where we've seen how rich people can afford to get the very best expertise to evade or even avoid or evade the taxes even that they ought to be paying. Forget even changing the rates, we ought to stop the leaks, right? So the first step might well be stop the leaks. Start collecting what's owed. The second step might well be close some of these loopholes that benefit most those who need help least, but it serve no public policy purpose. There are just loads of those, right? The third might be, and I think this wouldn't be a hard sell, why don't we tax money that you make from investment equal to how money we tax that you earn from hard work? Right now, you pay more on money you earn from working, salary or wage, than you do for money you make in an investment. When does that make sense? Because capital gains is taxed much lower than income, right? Than earned income. So let's at least come closer to evening that out. To close some loopholes, treat a dollar as a dollar. Then I think the next step is, we've gone through a pandemic that has preyed on our inequities, has shown the cracks in the system, that has hit the hardest, that hits the weakest most profoundly. So, but at the same time, some people made a killing. So why don't we do an excess profit tax, one time, short time, to help fund the recovery? And for those who made a killing while others suffered, let's tax some of that back to help rebuild. And then on an ongoing basis, let's agree on the principle that those who have benefited most from how the system was ought to pay most for making it better. So, so you could build something over time where you're building legitimacy for the tax system. And in the end, everybody's got to pay their fair share. Everybody, including the middle class, everybody's got to pay their fair share. But you got to work towards it. You got to rebuild legitimacy. And a key part, I know I'm talking endlessly, but a key part of rebuilding legitimacy is to be very clear to people what the tax money is going to go for.
But it does bring us to this relationship between accountability and trust and transparency and how much we are willing to pay in taxes, because we have to believe where the money's going, and we have to believe in the people who are using it on our behalf. And I think that's kind of that's one of the tricky parts that we've devolved or degraded over the last many decades. And we've got to navigate that challenge as well, it seems.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And, looking at means for greater civic engagement, democratic engagement is a really important thing. Real commitment to transparency is a really important thing. Clarity about where the money is going for, and then accountability that it actually went there is clear. And, you're not going to rebuild trust tomorrow after 4 decades of declining trust. I mean, it's going to take real work. For me, for example, I've been fighting for electoral reform because I think until we get people confident that their vote actually matters, it's going to be hard to rebuild trust. And it's a multi-pronged. The democratic reform is not secondary or irrelevant to the bread and butter issues of healthcare and good economy. They go together because democracy is about who is shaping the future. Is it the many or is it the few? And so if we don't fix the issue of who's shaping the future, which is democracy, we won't really fix the other stuff. So I think we need a comprehensive agenda. You know, for me, a new Green Deal, and I'm kind of keen on the idea of a new Green Deal, would include democratic reform.